Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game Week 21 pod of the FPL Wire. We are back. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined by my co-host, Late Riser and Pras, after what feels like a long, long time. Great to see you boys again. It's been ages. And as you can see, Pras is taking the helicopter view very seriously today. How are you, Pras?
I'm on the chopper. It's good to have the three of us back, and not much happened this week, has it?
Nothing at all. Not many decisions to... Should be a very short pod today, right?
LR, have you recovered?
Yeah, man. So good to be back chatting FPL with you boys. Both of you all impressive scores in Game Week 20. I did notice. Zoph now close to what, 50K?
58K right now, but big part of the season now. Now is when you got to rise to the top. Lots, in fact, the decisions we have to make this pod, I think, have huge ramifications. Have I lost you guys?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now you're back with us. Tell us.
Yeah, I was just saying it feels great because I don't think we've spoken much in the last 3 or 4 days. And as far as I know, all three of us have been really into it, catching up, reading things, etc. I mean, the little conversation we had, I was like, no, everybody's really thinking about what to do. So this is going to feel like a nice little brainstorming session that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Should we get started?
Yep,
let's go for it.
Let's do it. Scout plug up first.
Right. As always, all the stats that you see on this podcast are from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Gift yourself something in the new year and become a member because I think it'll help you get more engaged and enjoy this game. So yeah, if you want to become a member, do click on the link in the description below.
We have also partnered with NordVPN. If you're bored of the streaming libraries available in your country, you can expand your selection using NordVPN with the click of a button. There are over 5,000 plus server options available and no content is out of your reach. I've been using it to watch The Traitors. It's horrible waiting for more episodes.
Are you into it? Oh man,
yeah.
We should have a discussion after this. Traitors is amazing.
Traitors is amazing. Last year I watched it all continuously, but this year now having to wait for episodes is rough. But I had to mute Krellin for a while for that reason.
At this part of the time to mute Ben here.
Exactly. That's like stuff. Yeah. So privacy is a big deal too for all of us. Nord keeps your data encrypted and your IP address hidden to ensure complete privacy while you're browsing the internet. They've also added a new threat protection feature. Say goodbye to intrusive website ads and malware. Even if you download an infected file, threat protection kicks in and deletes it before it makes a mess of your computer. If you sign up using our creator code nordvpn.com/FPL Wire, you get a huge discount off your plan and 4 additional months for free. They also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Right, let's start, boys. Before we look at the fixtures, Pras, over to you. Helicopter view. Let's go.
Helicopter view. Let's go to the Lego Mane chart, and we'll only spend 5 minutes on this because what I want to do is talk about what that means, and we'll go team by team. So, look, I think during this break we've had the FA Cup third rounds. So first thing to remember is there are replays for a lot of teams, for a lot of Premier League teams. So if you see on this Lego Mane chart, This game week 21 is a quirky one where some teams will play this weekend. Some teams will have replays for their FA Cup in the middle of the week, and then they will play in game week 21 again the next weekend. So it's basically the winter break, which has been extended over 2 weekends. But this FA Cup replay also changes things. Like, for example, Brentford play Wolves before they play Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup. Bowen, a popular one who we'll talk about, he has an FA Cup replay before his game. But because it's the second weekend, you won't get a press conference. So there's implications around that. But I think people know about game week 21 enough, and we will talk about it in due course. What happens in this period also, which is tonight and tomorrow, is Carabao Cup. So the semi-final of the Carabao Cup happens during this period. And as we expect, if Chelsea and Liverpool go through, the simple implication of that is, you see in game week 26, that is when the final of the Carabao Cup happens. So if these teams make it to the final, Liverpool is likely to blank and Chelsea is likely to blank. I say likely, I will come back to why it's likely, not 100%. So Carabao Cup, there will be postponements in game week 26 and there'll be a blank. Then you roll forward. After game week 21, between game week 21 and 22 is the second leg of the Carabao Cup. So it's a two-legged. This is the last year where it's two-legged. And you have a very important FA Cup fourth round. So you saw in this FA Cup third round, the results were not important. Actually, the draw was important. The fact that Chelsea have drawn Aston Villa, the fact that Spurs have drawn Man City has implications on who will actually blank in the future. Because ultimately, the FA Cup quarterfinal, and this is what you see here. This chart is from @losers average losers, so losers AV losers. It's a good graphic. Shows you moving percentages of these fixtures actually blanking in a certain week. And what it's doing is simply taking odds of one of these teams making the quarterfinal, hence causing the blank in game week 29. But these percentages, don't take it as gospel, because it will be so much affected by the draw for the round 5 of the FA Cup, which will happen before game week 22. So let's say if Liverpool draw Man City, suddenly the Liverpool and Man City blank percentages will drastically come down because one of those teams is going to exit. So let's go back to the Lego Mane chart and let me just roll through till game week 26. So before game week 22 deadline, you will have the Carabao Cup done. You will know the finalist. You will have this round 4 of the FA Cup done. So therefore, you will know who are playing in the round 5 and have a good probability of who makes it into the quarterfinal. So game week 22 is a very important deadline from that
provided
perspective.
no replay. Sorry to interrupt you, Pras. Provided the game round doesn't go to replay, because then that replay is significantly later. Isn't between 23 and 24. Sorry, please continue.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. But you will still know the draw, but you will not know 100% if the team has made it or not. Then you have game week 22 and 23 in quick succession. This will be important because when we talk about Man City and others, is there a gap, enough gap? What is the rotation and so on and so forth? But obviously nothing can fit between game week 22 midweek, because that itself is a midweek, and nothing can fit in game week 23 as a postponed fixture because you have these replays that Zoph just talked about. Game week 24 is the first week where something can go in, a postponed fixture can go in. A low probability that the Bournemouth Luton fixture can go here. It's low, and we'll look at Mikkel Tokvam's percentages. But the more likely week is game week 25, when the Liverpool double, which is basically the postponed fixture from game week 26, the Luton game, will move to game week 25. And the Man City game, the one that they missed because of the Club World Cup, will fit in game week 25. Why 25? Because it gives 4 weeks notice after the FA Cup fourth round. So once you know that these teams are actually in the FA Cup fifth round, then you will have to basically move their fixture before. And why? Let's say if Liverpool lose, right? Liverpool have an easy draw, but let's say if they lose, then actually even if they make the Carabao Cup final, they will not have a blank, because you see in this chart, in the midweek of game week 26 is when the FA Cup round 5 is. So if you're not in the FA Cup, you can just play that game then. So therefore, it's a combination of how they're doing in the Carabao Cup and in the FA Cup. And because we think Liverpool will win that, be in the final and win their round 4, we think there's a good likelihood of this happening in game week 25. Game week 26, nothing can happen in terms of doubles. The only blank I talked about. Game week 27 and 28 are then other weeks where things can be positioned. So the Bournemouth game can fall here. And lastly, for Man City, there's only 2 windows in which the Man City Brentford game can happen. It's either game week 28 that you see here is free, and it's either game week 25. So very roughly, this is where we are. This is a moving picture, but I would say is people will give you chip strategies or say what you have to do. Until game week 22, nobody can know what to do, because game week 22 deadline will be the main one when you'll have to semi-commit either to a free hit in 25 or a free hit in 26 or a free hit in 29. At least have in mind that this is the path that I'm taking, which can also change, but right now will be too early.
Just walk us through Talkwam's chart here, Pras. Just spend a few seconds on that.
So on this one, so firstly, shout out to Mikkel Talkwam. This is basically just laying out percentages of certain games happening in certain weeks. And this will interplay if you basically revisit what I just said. This will tell you when is the probability of a fixture happening. So like I said, Gameweek 23 is the first week where the first double could happen. But according to Mikkel Talkwam, it's only 7% chance that the Bournemouth-Luton game actually takes place in Gameweek 23. Gameweek 24 is the other one that I talked about. Again, a free-ish midweek, but not enough notice for fans. So some games could happen in Gameweek 24 and making it a double. So the Bournemouth-Luton game could fit here. The Liverpool-Luton game could also fit here, but that's not enough notice after round 5. After round 4, if they make it or not. So very likely the first double that we see is Gameweek 25, and you see this bold in green. This basically says there's a 68% chance. So Man City will have 1.68 games in that game week. 68% chance that the Brentford game that they had postponed will fit here. There is also a 64% chance that the Liverpool-Luton game, this is basically, again, taking into account that Liverpool make the final and they win their game, they will have to put this here. So Gameweek 25, 64% chance of a Liverpool-Luton double, 68% chance of a City one. The Bournemouth one cannot happen here because their postponed game is also Luton. So it's only either Liverpool will happen or Bournemouth will happen. Both obviously cannot happen. Otherwise, we'll have a triple game week for Luton, which is not necessary. Gameweek 26, the probabilities here are basically saying that it's a very low likelihood that Spurs-Chelsea happens. Again, this is based on the Carabao Cup probabilities. So 80% chance they make the final, Chelsea. And therefore, because Chelsea plays Spurs, that will be a blank. So only 20% chance of that happening in Gameweek 26. So very likely a blank. And then the Liverpool game is 22% that they make the final, and therefore this becomes a blank. Luton's is slightly higher because you could have a chance that actually Bournemouth-Luton happens in 26, which would make it a blank and a double. But we don't need to go there. So I think we stop at 26, and 29 is the last one, which everybody knows is the quarterfinal. But I repeat, it's too early to look at probabilities there. The only thing we know is a lot of Premier League teams are playing each other. So 29 should not be as bad as what we historically remember it to be.
And what
just to add on to that, one small thing is that if you're looking at chip strategy, etc. as well, the Gameweek 31 is the popular window that people are looking at for wildcards at the moment, primarily because you get a dead end after these massive blanks that Pras has just spoken about, and in Gameweek 30, City and Arsenal, who have the best run of fixtures Gameweek 31 onwards, sort of play each other. So I just wanted to add that little bit of information.
Yeah. 30 is right after that international break, and 31 is a midweek after. So if you're going to wildcard in 31, it's a 2-day for decision making. Yeah. That's it.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Pras, can I have a request for you? I know your original mic is going to come back in a week or whenever, but whenever we're doing the helicopter view, can we get you with this mic? Then maybe mid-pod you can just change it. It gave us a real feeling of Pras talking to us from the skies and giving us a proper update in terms of what's happening. And then it's like he's looking down at Lego Mane's map and just telling us, navigating things, what's happening, what's not happening.
I can shout Mayday, Mayday if we hear Trent news, right?
We did. We actually did right 5 minutes before the pod. We got the Trent news. We should timestamp that. So this pod is after we got the Trent injury news. But before we talk about Salah, Son, Trent, etc., let's just touch upon chip strategy because that will sort of lend itself into our discussion. So let me ask you first, Ella. What is your initial takeaway from this with regards to chips?
I mean, I don't know what the picture is going to look after 30 in terms of the doubles in 32, 33, 37, etc. as well. But I'll see based on that. If the doubles do come to play in Gameweek 25, I'm somebody who already owns Trent and Darwin and will likely get somebody like a Mo Salah the moment he's available, right? So the question, if you ask, and Erling Haaland is the fourth player that everybody's really going to want for that double in Gameweek 25. These are players that we're going to get in our teams irrespective. So, there's a conversation of a free hit 25 versus Gameweek free hit 25, not using the free hit chip in Gameweek 25. And a small discussion that I had with Pras, and it's the first line. I wrote an article talking about chip strategy and what you should take and not take this morning for the scout. And the first thing that I want to tell people is when they're absorbing information, like the most important thing that they need to absorb is the factors to consider. I don't think you can blindly copy paste anybody's chip strategy. What you need to absorb is these are the factors to consider. This is what I'm going to have in the future. This is this now. Sit with your team, sit with one of the FPL planners, sit with a pen and paper, and then form your own chip strategy. That's the primary takeaway. But 25 is an opportunity for a free hit. 25 is an opportunity for triple captaincy as well. Liverpool's fixtures look really good, and you mentioned as well that it's probably the only double gaming that we might get from Erling Haaland as well.
It might be in 37, but the picture by 37, the titles could be clinched, Champions League and all that stuff. It's quite dicey using the triple captain then.
Yeah. It's actually very likely that this will be the only double, apart from 37, that we get to captain Haaland or triple captain Haaland. Ironically, if the Liverpool double happens, he's not even the best captain in 25. You can argue that Salah is a better captain with Luton at home and who else does he play? Brentford away. So it's a very weird week where you think that you want to triple captain Haaland this season, but actually there is no week apart from 37 where he'll have a double and he's the best captain.
And while we're just adding and talking about 25, some of the common players that everybody already owns. We're talking about Arsenal players, they play Burnley away. We're talking about Aston Villa players, they play Fulham away. We're talking about Newcastle players, they play Bournemouth at home. We're talking about Spurs players, they play Wolves at home. So a lot of the usual suspects also just have really good fixtures in that week as well.
Correct. That's the biggest. So you've hit the two biggest cons of a free hit 25, which is Arsenal and Aston Villa and Newcastle. I mean, to an extent, I can argue Trippier on a free hit. Not many will have Trippier by then. But still, it's a con that there are good fixtures for Villa, Arsenal, which are popular teams, and maybe Spurs. Although Spurs, I argue, people will be looking to lose their Spurs players soonish. Maybe they keep Porro, but that's it. So but basically the pro of Game Week 25 is there are two teams that are the most explosive teams with the most expensive players, and likely both are going to blank in 29. One of them is likely going to blank in 26. They play each other in 28. So you have the opportunity to say, look, I'm going to bring, and now even Trent, with the Trent issue, for me, free hit 25 is even more in play, because if people lose Trent, people lose Salah, I bring Trent, Salah, and let's say Darwin or Jota or anyone. I bring Haaland and Foden and another defender or even Alvarez. No, you don't know. And with City, it's best to pick their players on a Friday before the double. So just these two enough tell me that then I don't need to worry about Mo, because of course I'm taking a risk that Burnley at home he's ready for in Game Week 24, and also Nottingham Forest away, slight risk in Game Week 27. But then I get him back in Game Week 30 or 31. So it's not as big of a risk. And if I'm especially swerving Salah, it means I'm getting Son earlier. Because people who shoehorn their team to get Salah in by Game Week 25, they're not getting Son. No chance. So at least by not getting Salah, you actually can get Son. And actually, if you look at Spurs' fixtures, they play Wolves at home. After Game Week 27, they play Luton away. Crystal Palace at home, Aston Villa away, and Fulham away. All good fixtures for Son. And the fact that Spurs are now playing Man City. Now, City have a terrible record away to Spurs. But let's say they lose to Man City. Then you can argue that Spurs have a fixture coming up in 29 as well. So getting Son makes even more sense. So these are just some of the pros. Like I said, you cannot finalize your chip strategy already. But I do think there's merit to thinking about it.
Yeah. Another con, I think, again, you have to be wary of is possibly ignoring good assets. Like you see, Liverpool, like you mentioned, let's say Salah comes back in 23, 24. You'll be like, oh, anyway, he's going to blank, etc. I'll get him on the free hit. That's something also I think we should be wary of. Good assets will pick up points into the next 3-4 games, irrespective of the blank they might have 5 game weeks later.
Correct.
And this spanner in the works, I mean, what we heard just before coming on was that Trent has some sort of muscular ligament sort of injury, and the Liverpool official Twitter account mentioned that he was going to be out for weeks. Now, we don't know what this weeks is. It could be 2, it could be 5. But what it actually does definitely look like to me is that he's probably going to be out for the Carabao Cup games. Now, Liverpool are facing a fairly informed Fulham team who are without Iwobi and Bassi as well. 2 very important players. But I don't feel like it's nailed on that 26 Liverpool fixture is a blank.
Yeah, and the second leg is away for both Premier League teams.
Exactly. So, you wait and watch and see what happens right now, because you're talking about Liverpool, the best team in the country at the moment, but without Trent, Salah, and a very informed Endo.
I mean, to be honest, people are asking who should you sell first, right? Son or Salah? And some people will easily say, okay, let's sell Son because Salah you definitely want back. There's a chance that you hold him through the period if he comes back earlier. But actually, for me, it depends on Carabao Cup. Like if in the first leg, that's the home leg, one of them, let's say Fulham wins or Middlesbrough wins tonight, then I'm happy to hold Son more because maybe Son doesn't blank in 26. So I think information, none of us have made transfers. We've been saying it this week with the draw, with the Carabao semis. You just want to know as much as you want just outside the game. If Jota scores a hat trick, that's also information. But I'm saying even from the blanks and doubles perspective, there's so much to learn by Friday that you just need to hold off.
Absolutely. I think we've covered that quite extensively now. I think let's start talking about the picks. But before that, I want to talk about the trend subject, about who to sell, etc. Should we talk about that now or should we do that after we discuss the picks?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
You up first, Edat? What do you think?
I mean, Pras already mentioned right now that most of us owning Son and Salah have a decision of which player to sell first. You also add a Trent into that equation now and discuss who to sell first. Now, for somebody that already has other expensive assets, maybe funds a Haaland purchase in 22, a likely Haaland purchase in 22 by selling a Trent, that could be an option. I mean, a lot of players, Pras has mentioned as well that we are probably ignoring explosive assets like Estupinan, who are going to go an incredible run of fixtures right now. You could probably jump on that. It's maybe about which replaceable assets do you like more. Do you like that defender pick more? Do you like the midfielder pick more? And when you want to get these players back? And at what point does these players that you're getting affect your buyback ability of Haaland and your buyback ability of Salah? I think these are the two, and Trent. I think these are the three very, very important factors to consider when you're selling your players at them.
So we should mention the quote says weeks. Now, Game Week 22 is in fact significantly away. It is about 3 weeks away today, 4 weeks away. But then again, Game Week 23 is close and then Game Week 24. It all comes very thick and fast. But right after Bournemouth, Liverpool play Chelsea and Arsenal. They could win those, but again, clean sheet probabilities for those look a little bit lower. So if you sell Trent now, it's unlikely you're buying him back before 24 at the earliest, right? Even if you're not planning to free hit, you want him in for the double. 24 is probably when you'll buy him.
Yeah. And that's the time you want to get Salah in as well.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you decide which replacements do you like more. That's about it. And there is one strategy where, if you're getting rid of Trent or Salah, you sort of commit to the potential City double. So even if you're committing to sort of like a potential City double, the midfield replacements in the Man City team are right now much more attractive than anybody in defense.
Yeah, there's another problem here. Normally, you could say let your substitutes come into play, but because of the nature of this game week, you don't know what's going to happen in the Carabao Cup games. The teams playing in the second half of the game week, we don't even have the pressers. Solanke, for example, he was left out of the Bournemouth squad for the FA Cup. We don't know if there's an injury. We won't have any updates whatsoever. So you might even need your Archers and your Gordons off the bench. So it's a bit risky, like, just saying that I have one sub, he'll let him come on for Trent because that guy might be needed for somebody else.
Fair. Maybe go on, Pras.
No, so I was saying basically my thought process with the who to sell, basically my first instinct is sell Son. If results are what we expect, right? Both Chelsea win and Liverpool win in the Carabao Cup. So sell Son first because you know that there is no urgency for Son. Son doesn't have a double. Son likely has a blank in 26. And so you can take your time with Son. Now, problem is if you sell Son, that doesn't fund Haaland for many. It doesn't for me. So then my approach, at least what I'm thinking at the moment, and we see what more information we gather in the next 3 days, sell Son this week and just hold on to Trent and Salah if I can, and I think my team I can. And then in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I decide if I need to fund Haaland through selling Trent or through selling Salah. And selling Trent will be basically if it's a longer job, we're talking 4-5 weeks. Because frankly, I would rather sell Trent in that way because I don't have any money tied up in Trent. So in that case, also Salah is the one I want to captain, right? So if I want to lose one, let's say right now you tell me you have to sacrifice one of Trent or Salah for game week 25 double. I think I'm okay sacrificing Trent, even though it doesn't feel great. But if there is a smaller chance that I hold on to Salah, he's definitely back by 25. Then I just keep hold of Salah. Now I appreciate not everybody's team is in the similar position where they can both bench both of them this week and still put out a good team. But that's at least my initial thought.
Like you said, having the money in for Haaland for 22 is a good idea. If you make your 2 transfers then, and if you have a clear route to Haaland, I don't mind that idea. But I do like the entry point for Estupinan this week. Once you mentioned him, my eyes lit up. As Wolves at home, then Luton away, then Palace at home. Spurs away, Sheffield United away, Everton at home. Those are good games.
They're good.
Yeah.
But he played centre back last game. I don't know if Milner played left back. It could be a game state thing. It could be as the centre backs come back from injury, he goes back to his position. But they did keep
He
their
scored a
first clean
lovely
sheet
goal.
season.
And also in the
Yeah.
FA Cup, and again, he scored a banger from outside the box. He looks on it again. I think I'll be going for Estupinan.
It's just he's also coming back from injury himself, right? And the Brighton, if you want to call it the wing back position, is very, very, it requires a lot of stamina from the fullback as well. So I guess it's also a factor of not throwing him right into the mix immediately.
The gap is good though, right? They play in the second half of the game week, and then after that again they have the FA Cup round replay sorry, not replay. Yeah, they go to 22, right? Round 4 they play Sheffield United, then Luton, Palace.
Yeah.
But I think you could maybe miss one of those games. But he has a full month now to build up fitness, which is encouraging.
Yep. I mean, there's Estupinan. There's if you're looking at defenders, I think there's like a sanity sort of move to Gusto. There's Estupinan, and there's a City defender if you fancy one. Is there a City defender in play at the moment?
Their captain Walker.
Walker started every game.
Yeah. There's nothing that's really enticing in defense, right? It's like a sort of like a sanity move. Guardiola was playing really advanced, but also with City, right? I'd like to watch a game or two of them with Haaland in play, because I feel like we're going to see like a City 2.0 or even a 3.0 version this season with Kev back, with Haaland back in play as well. Pep keeps evolving in terms of positions of the players, etc. And as and when he has those players at his disposal. Now, they played in a certain manner in the last 6 to 8 weeks, but that changes once you have Kev and Foden back in their roles, what kind of positions they occupy, etc. as well. So, the problem is that the money game, which is Burnley in 22, is just a week away. So there could be merit before you commit to with City players to just watch them for a single game. But even the Newcastle game is going to be without Haaland. So
Gusto is a great shout. He was again very good in the FA Cup game. Our fixtures are a bit mixed. I like the Fulham game. Then we travel to Liverpool. You probably look to bench him there if you can. Wolves at home is all right. Palace away, not bad. You can always get a clean sheet there. Then again, you'd probably look to hide him anyway.
Yeah. Like my advice is, whatever transfers you're making, make sure you're clicking on a forward out button and are able to afford Erling Haaland, because he's likely going to be the captain we all want in 22. So just make sure you're not, denying yourself that move in the future.
Any other defender shots? Go ahead.
Shall we finish Liverpool? Because I wanted to also talk Jota, because I mean, it's in context of obviously the mid replacements. No, but defenders also become in play now. I guess what a lot of people obviously are selling Salah, and is Jota in something that you guys have thought about? What will it take for you to get Jota in?
So what would
he was my first choice?
Mine too. And again, what I was looking for tomorrow would be a start and maybe a goal. But the Trent news worries me. It's a huge miss in their creative engine now. With Trent out, I don't think I'll be going for Jota.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about watching how they perform, right, in the game against Fulham, and how that will give us an indication of what this team is going to look like and against a pretty able Premier League opposition. But like whatever I saw from Jota, I thought he looked really, really sharp. I thought that second half performance, after watching that game against Arsenal, I thought that the second half front three would ideally be his first choice front three. It makes the most sense in my head, at least. Darwin left, Jota central, and Diaz on the right, because Diaz is able to do a lot of the ball carrying, dribbling, etc. as well. And Jota would get the center position where he would play 60/30. I just thought that in the more important games, Jota would play over Gakpo, is what my perception of is. And he's got a very, very high ceiling. You forget his routes to goals in terms of he's able to finish from both his feet. He's able to finish from crosses as well. And Liverpool right now just look a level above everybody else in terms of the creativity. But now that is just massively hampered, and we are wondering what's happening with Liverpool. I was okay going there without Mo and Endo, because Mac Allister was coming back anyway. But now without Trent, it's a wait and watch, see what happens in the game against Fulham, assess the performance and take it from there.
Plus their schedule is actually the worst of the lot, right? I mean, if you look at it, they play Fulham this week. Then actually they have a nice break. So they don't play in the first weekend of Game Week 21. They play in the second weekend, which basically also takes away any guesswork, right? There's no midweek game where Jota is rested and then you can say, okay, I'm going to play him. Same for Darwin, by the way. So you then have the Bournemouth game, which you're almost going blind. Then you have the second leg against Fulham. Then you have the FA Cup round 4, which is an easy-ish game. So that maybe we'll see some rotation for the benefit of us. Then the Chelsea-Arsenal game is in 4-5 days. So does he play both? I mean, as of right now, what you know, LR, you think Jota starts both Chelsea and Arsenal? I don't know.
I don't know either.
No, we don't know. We just guess that he's so crucial to the team.
But those are Gakpo games anyway, no? I mean, at least one of them is a Gakpo game.
Could be.
I don't necessarily think so. I thought Jota, it's Gakpo's good at building up the play, etc. and all that. But I think Jota is as well. I think Jota is really good. I think his decision making is really good. I think he can hold the ball up comfortably, and I think he's a really good presser as well. So that was what my perception is. In fact, when assessing the fixtures, I was having a chat with Zoph about a week ago, and I was just asking him his perception of the Chelsea defense, because I wanted to, in my head, steadfast how I wanted to view that Chelsea fixture as well. And Zoph immediately said, chaos. We're going to concede chances no matter what. We're just going to concede chances. Liverpool will batter us. So that sort of changed the perception that, okay, you know what, this Chelsea game is also a good game for your Liverpool attackers. But I just don't know now minus Trent. Yeah. That's the perception.
And then the reality is, after Salah's back, then party is over. I mean, Jota could start,
yeah.
But it's not like Darwin will stop starting at all. It's not like Diaz will stop starting at all. So Jota party is basically next 4 game weeks. And of them, 2 are Chelsea and Arsenal. And there is some minutes risk, maybe not start risk, but minutes risk. And I mean, I see in the chat, people are saying, why on earth are we going on about Jota?
There are 2 contrasting comments in the chat. That's what I love from Alex and Nandish. One, we have Alex saying, don't get why on earth Jota is being considered. And then Nandish says, did you see Jota jumping over and beating Saliba to a header? He's the best player in the forward line.
He finishes big chances. In the team, after Salah, there's only one guy who finishes big chances, who has composure. He's the guy. I mean, we've captained him in the past. That's how much we trust him. Obviously, things are different now, but he is the guy. He scores goals.
Yeah. Like the straight thought in my head first was, he's the center forward. In my opinion, right now, the best attack in the league.
The highest ceiling. That's what I felt like. Out of all the picks, you pick out the hat-trick potential. If you have to throw your hat on, you throw it on Jota. And the Bournemouth fixture, I know they're bottom for big chances conceded and all that stuff, but Liverpool like to play these teams. That like to play, they like to come out. I think that's again a good fixture for Jota.
But just thinking about that back four now, what happens? Yeah, because Gomez shifts to right back, presumably. He was playing in Simicas's position. Simicas and Robbo both are injured. Matip is injured. So they've got Van Dijk and Konsa playing as the
Konate. So probably shift Konsa there or Konate there.
Yeah, they don't really have anybody else as far as I know.
No, they're going to go full Guardiola with 4 centre backs.
Or this Bradley guy, right? This kid that came on.
There might be some of the youth guys. We are not really well acquainted with the options in that department.
But it changes dynamics. So Bosla is out as well. He's another engine.
Yeah, a lot of injuries suddenly for Liverpool.
So that's Liverpool, right? I mean, we've talked about Trent, we've talked about Salah. I also saw in the comments that people were saying, oh, we'll get Salah later by selling Trent. You can't do that, because if everyone is fit in Game Week 25, you want Trent and Salah for that double, which is absolutely amazing. So your route to getting Salah back, if you're not free hitting, has to be holding Trent if he's fit, and getting Salah another way while holding Haaland and possibly another Foden or Bowen or whichever midfielder you have. So the route is not by selling Trent. You have to get Salah back another way.
Which team should we talk about? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the game on Wednesday is important in terms of just assessing how they line up. And it also dictates a lot, right? Because if Liverpool, let's say, beat Fulham by 2 or 3 goals, then Klopp takes it a little easy in the second leg. And you sort of think that that's where the first team should probably get rested or something of that sort as well. And I think whatever you do, Game Week 22, provided we get the doubles announced, I think you start committing to a chip strategy, irrespective, one way or the other.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Should we do Man City?
Let's do Man City. And I just wanted to introduce this chart we have from our friends FPL Under the Radar. And you see how far ahead your Salah and Son are, right? And this is why they're such big misses. They're such good assets. Replacing them, we are mostly replacing them with players.
So there's another guy. there as well.
Yeah, I
In
was
that
waiting for
corner.
that. I was waiting for
Yeah,
somebody
just wanted
there.
to add that.
He who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named. Yeah. Pras actually doesn't know. Zoph and I have had a little bit of a Darwin debate in the past couple of weeks, etc. as well. So,
Dude, I
yeah.
saw Zoph buying Darwin, having a nosebleed, and getting out off there like in 2 weeks.
Yeah, he
Fortunately,
was
it wasn't
spot
too
on.
bad. Fortunately, it wasn't
Yeah.
too bad. Got Watkins the right week, Solanke the week after, so got very lucky with that. Not too bad. But
Yeah. And it's also right. It's just not a Zoph pick. It's as simple as that.
Well, now we have Werner also.
Yeah.
There's lots of options. This pod will be
Yeah.
busy.
If the FPL gods see some justice, there needs to be some game week at this point this season where I own Darwin and Werner, where not many people own them, and they both score hat tricks in the same week. That's it. I can retire from FPL that week.
throw
We
in
know that's
Nico.
not going to happen, so we can move on.
Yeah, throw in Nico Jackson in that as well to complete the trio. But like, I'm glad you mentioned Werner. Let's talk about Spurs, because Richarlison was going to be my initial no-brainer pick. Simple playing striker for Spurs, hogging hogging a large chunk of the big chances, and both of you guys already own him. So what do you think impact of Werner in general, Richarlison going forward in the absence of Son? Russ, you first.
I mean, I can only go by what the above average FPL guys said. They had a pod with Mark earlier, that he won't necessarily start, and I mean Werner, and so Richarlison starts are done, but maybe it affects the minutes in some way. Maybe at some point Werner starts on the left, but then because Richarlison comes off at some point, and Baker made a great point that Richarlison doesn't come off because he's not playing well. He comes off because he's either looking tired or he's picked up a yellow, or basically, and just wants to take him off. So now they have an option with Werner who can play up top if needed. But I think more likely it is that Werner plays on the left more often, and it's not that he's going to start most games. So short term, I'm fine with Richarlison. And my first instinct was Richarlison was going to be a sell because he's likely blanking in game week 26. And before game week 26, he plays. He has Wolves, Brighton, Everton, Brentford, which are all great games. So I'm happy with his fixtures until then. After Wolves, he goes. And I'm thinking of someone like a Wolves guy or somebody who plays in game week 29 as his replacement. So as a hold, he's an easy hold. As a worry, I'm not really worried. I'm actually quite excited. His XG is really, really good.
Because on the chart, he's quite favorable. You see, he's up there with Nico Jackson, 1.2 big chances per 90 are serious numbers.
They create chances, and he's at the end of them. So we knew that. And he may be a bad finisher, but he does put some away. So
I just want to warn you, Zoph. He's a bad finisher. So if you're deciding to watch Richarlison, you don't watch the Spurs games. Otherwise, you'll form opinions.
I can handle it's the X minutes thing I don't like with Darwin. At least the X minutes guys should get the points when they play. That doesn't happen with Darwin.
But just on a very serious note, right? Like with Richarlison, I've been owning him for the past 4 or 5 weeks. So when I'm watching Spurs, it's with tunnel vision. I think people worrying about his spot not being secure is slightly unfounded. Because when I'm watching Spurs play, I feel like he's growing as a center forward. Like the first 2 or 3 games, he wasn't really getting many chances, was sort of running around like a headless chicken, not knowing where to position himself. And this has sort of gradually improved. If there's this sort of graph in my head where the number of chances Richarlison's getting per game, I see that as it improving and going up week on week. It just says that he's not finishing them, so he will frustrate you. So if you're the kind of FPL player that bothers, because he snatches at a few chances or doesn't finish them off, that might get to you. But he's improving as a center forward. He's doing the right things. He's developing more and more chemistry with the players around him as well. So I think he's a good pick.
Yep.
I don't think I'm too worried about the expected minutes.
And the Spurs numbers are great. They're second in the league for XG non-penalty over the last 6 matches. So whoever it is, the Spurs centre forward will continue to get chances. Even in the FA Cup game, he got very poor player ratings. But I saw the highlights back. He was just inches away from the cross, inches away from the pass. The positioning is there. And it's similar to what happened with Foden this weekend. A lot of people were like, oh, Foden has only assist threat. He doesn't score. That's because he was in the box. He was just not receiving the ball. He got them twice this time and he scored.
It's a good segue if we can you want to talk about Phil right now, or you want to discuss for...
Let's close up on Spurs, then we'll move on to Phil. What else do we have to send to Charles? Is he still a buy now for somebody like me who doesn't own him? Again, I'm worried about ignoring perfectly good assets because they blank at 26. Now we look at the fixtures here, what they have right now. I think, let's say Manchester United away this week who are with Onana. They're a bit better. I would like what's his name, the backup keeper to start. Let's just have a look at the other games. Then you have Brentford, who are a bit ropey now. Everton away, his old club. Brighton, you do expect to concede chances, and similar with Wolves. So after the United ones, they have 3 home games.
Yep.
Potentially. And again, 26 might not even be a blank. We don't know that for sure yet. Is he still a buy for somebody like me, you think, Pras?
It's difficult to recommend when you already own because you don't want to show bias, but I think he's a very good pick. I mean, he could be very well on penalties as well. He could even benefit from a 3-week period where Maddison is feeding him if he comes back by game week 22. So I think he's a perfectly good pick, and especially if you're comparing him, people will compare him to a Foden or a Bowen or a Jota. He's way cheaper. So if it allows it an easier route, because Zoph, in your article you mentioned, if everything was what it was on the weekend, I know things have changed now, but if everything was the same, then Richarlison was allowing you a route back to Salah much easier than if you had gone for a Foden or a Bowen. So there's value consideration to this as well. But I think attacking Spurs side, I took a hit for Richarlison 3 weeks ago, I think a week after LR, because I just thought,
I remember you got him for Gordon. Paid off well.
Yeah. I mean, if you're playing center forward for an Ange team that is creating as much as it creates, because not like Liverpool, I don't think Spurs will suffer as much without Son. Again, I'm quoting the above average guys. They will still create. They will still have enough players to get those attacking chances, and he's playing center forward. He's a good pick.
Yep.
I think Timo is actually good for Richarlison, conversely, because I do expect PJ to move to the right-hand side, Timo to play left forward, and Kulusevski to play in that 10 role, which he's done so well this season as well. And Bentancur and Lo Celso to maybe play as the 2 6s. I like that front 6 for Spurs. And I think Timo is somebody who just, spreads the opposition defense wide and creates space for somebody like Richarlison. So, yeah. I don't see it as a big issue.
Should we introduce hits into the conversation? Because some people are mentioning in the chat now they have these 3 guys to get rid of and 1 free transfer. So we also have to consider entry point for certain players, because a lot of guys have a Gordon as a sub, Archer as a sub. Is Richarlison worth taking a hit for this week away to Manchester United, or do I just get him the week after? Asking to United fans, yes. That's why I want your opinions.
I mean, you can play Gordon.
Yeah, just play Gordon or Archer, because I think Sheffield United, one thing to note about, just quickly touching upon Sheffield United, is that your bench assets, whoever they might be, whether they're McCarthy in a 3-4-3 or Archer in a 3-5-2, they are playable in all the games until game week 27. They just have...
Is Archer's minutes slightly affected? That guy Osula, I remember he scored a brace in the weekend and they've signed a new striker. I don't know much about him enough, so I'm not... Are Archer's minutes affected? I'm not really sure.
They aren't until they are, is how I perceive it to be. Because he's been one of their best players anyway, right?
Yes,
so I don't see
very
that
well
changing.
Consistently, just on the eye test.
Exactly. And like West Ham, Palace, Villa, Luton, Brighton, Wolves, just playable as your bench assets whenever you want to. Like that cushion is there for your Sheffield United assets at the moment.
What sort of score are you seeing in that game, Pras? Something like a 2-2? It doesn't feel like a 1-0, 1-1 game.
But that doesn't mean that I won't play my Poro or something. I mean, basically, it's just an open... If we take our chances, because Man United create chances and they miss a lot of chances. It happens every single game. So I can see goals. But, one of the things is Van der Ven could be back for Spurs. I don't know what the situation with Romero is. So it's, they may be slightly better, but I can't see less than 4 goals.
So you still expect to concede a couple. So that I guess the entry point isn't as bad as it looks on paper. Cool. Move on from Spurs.
Yeah.
Let's talk Man City and your boy Phil Foden, LR.
Yeah, I mean, you were touching upon it's not the same as Foden, who was pretty central, etc. And, was like an inch or 2 away from the ball. I just want to say that, I mentioned about 15 minutes ago, City is going to change now. There are 2 or 3 factors in play now. How City play when they have an XG hogging elite player like Haaland in the mix is very different from how City play without him. And when they have one of the world's best creators in play, how City will play with him and without him are 2 separate factors. So I don't know how much of Foden's numbers, Alvarez's numbers from the last positioning, etc., from the last 5-6 weeks can we extrapolate and predict what's going to happen in the next phase of Man City. Like that's one thing. The second thing though, is Phil Foden, we're watching him turn from a boy into the man. He's always been that guy for us, but I think that's happening in front of Pep's eyes now. like properly, where I think he is, for me at least, turned that leaf where he's become firmly first choice in that City team. I don't know what it'll take for Pep to say, no, he's not in my first choice 11 at the moment. And I see him playing primarily as a 10 and sometimes with the right based on who he's going to accommodate. So I think Foden's expected minutes shouldn't be as under threat as perceived to be, because I think he's entered that level of stratosphere. He's been City's best player in the last 6 or 7 weeks. Just will he continue getting the best chances? There was, if you remember, there was a phase of play at the early part of last season where Foden was playing with Haaland and he was the ancillary striker closest to Erling Haaland and getting a bulk of the chances. That he got a hat trick against United when this sort of phase of play was happening around game week 7 or 8 last season as well. So that could very well happen. All things considered, is he a good pick? Yes. But it could be the case that he's not really getting the chances because Haaland is getting. We don't know how Pep is going to shift. So be prepared for that. It could be a great pick, but we see how City played 2-3 weeks later and it just couldn't be the same. And we there's no way to say that, right? We don't know what Pep is thinking for his next phase of the league at the moment.
Yeah. The thing with Man City is I'm keen to invest there because they're the only team that are getting stronger over their period.
Yep.
All their rivals have been weaker. We see Arsenal, they're crumbling a bit without a centre forward. Spurs have lost Son. Liverpool have lost Salah. But City are getting all their players back now. And this is the part of the season we've seen. They do go on a run. Let's talk about KDB's return and the impact it will have on Foden. Now, we had some quotes recently from KDB where he doesn't expect to start matches. He says so himself. Now game week 22, we look at it is 2-3 weeks away, but then the fixtures come very close. You have 30th, 3rd Feb, 24th also, so these 3 game weeks in a space of a week. Kev starts 1 at best? Probably not. I don't think he's going to start all 3. So I think at least up to 25 the minutes are secure, and City feel that the only one who are almost certain, and I use the term loosely for a double because they're not dependent on certain cup eliminations. So it feels like a step you're making towards a double, right, Pras?
Yeah, I think so, but I'm still wary of, look, there is the football aspect to it, which LR articulated perfectly. He's a great pick. And I'm talking Foden in relation to KDB. But as KDB in isolation, I think he's not a pick at the moment.
Yeah.
FPL pick, it will take time. We just don't know. It's a classic case of you saw what happened to Shaw. You saw what happened to Nkunku. We have enough examples where people come back after a long layoff and something happens and it affects them and they're gradually brought back into the team. That is unlike somebody like a Tony who's been playing for 6 months, just not injured. So there are differences. So KDB not an option, but implications of KDB we have to keep in mind. And it's also Doku, by the way. So if Doku is back, then he could play on the right. Bernardo Silva could move to the center if Grealish also starts. If Doku is playing on the left, Foden could play on the right. KDB could start. So there are implications here for Foden, which I want to specifically talk to you guys about. Can you rely? So firstly, the FA Cup round 4 against Spurs is not helpful, right? Pep hates going to Spurs, away to Spurs. So before game week 22, you'll have a game away to Spurs where you expect all the big hitters to start. Probably Haaland starts if he's fit, Foden starts, Alvarez maybe instead of De Bruyne if he's not up to speed. Then you have Burnley and Brentford in 5 days. Who starts? I mean, are we sure that Foden doesn't miss one? Of course, no one is sure, but that's my first X minutes concern for Foden. And the second one is just the double. The double which we think will happen in game week 25. Again, it's Chelsea, Brentford at home, both are at home, then Bournemouth away. Bournemouth is a trickier fixture now than it was before. So could you see rotation in the Brentford at home midweek game? So it's my minutes guy who's basically telling me if Bowen was 100% fit, would I pick Bowen over Foden? Or would I still pick Foden? That's where I am, at least in the Foden dilemma.
Yeah. Something I want to mention about Man City's schedule, and Pep has done this in previous years, when you have the winter break and you come back, because they're playing in the first game week. So they'll have a long time off before the FA Cup round 4. He generally will go strong. And over these 3 games, he'd like to give everybody some few minutes to get rhythm back in the legs. That's a phrase he used last year also. But I just think the fact that he's playing so well, just board. So you have to get these players on when they're on their hot streak. Again, the minutes risk might be there, but in the double, pretty much everyone will be a minutes risk who isn't Haaland. And I like the fact that
the fixtures are there.
And the fixtures are actually difficult fixtures on paper in the double. These are the teams he'll take seriously. Brentford have beaten City before at the Etihad. And Chelsea also, we gave them a 4-4. So he will want to play a strong lineup in these games. You could obviously counter this by saying these are Bernardo Silva games. So that's one spot less for Foden. But I like the idea of going in now.
Yeah, I think he's so first choice right now, and City are. You can't rule out the fact that City are right in the title race, and they're
They
smelling
smell
blood.
blood. Yeah, we use the same phrase over there.
Exactly that. Then you can't bench your most informed player in this sort
and
of
Newcastle isn't a tough game anymore. Newcastle, St. James Park, you expect to be goals for both sides in that fixture.
Yeah. It's just my main worry is I don't know if he's going to be as involved as he's been in the last 3 or 4 games that he's playing centrally. Like that's the one thing that you're taking a chance on.
Yeah. Again, it is an X-Men risk and not a player I traditionally go for. But I think of my initial logic was I'd go for one steady Eddie with one of my picks, like a Richarlison, who's nailed on. And the second one, I would be a bit more punty.
Yeah. Pras, do we know what date the FA Cup game is? Is a Saturday or a Sunday in that game week?
It's midweek. No,
he's asking if it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Oh, yeah, it's the weekend.
And then, 22.
No, he's right. The FA Cup is on the weekend, and the game week 22 is a midweek, and then the 23 against Brentford is on a Monday, if I remember right. It's Wednesday,
exactly.
Monday. It's a good turnaround.
And my point is that if that game is a Saturday, then it isn't too much of an issue either because it's a Saturday, Wednesday, Monday.
And they've had 2 weeks off before that. And they've had 2 weeks off before that. That's also something we should note.
I'm seeing Lego Mane's chart here. 23 is a Monday.
No, but it may not be. It may not be because you saw what happened to Luton versus Burnley this week. If they draw Spurs and they have a replay. So this is why the Spurs game is not ideal at all because if they draw Spurs, then they play Spurs, Burnley, Brentford, Spurs, Everton, and it's all squeezed in and it's not spread out anymore because it can't be then on a Monday if they're playing midweek again.
You could make a case for leaving the transfer for game week 22, but the problem is again, I think that's a Wednesday game. We have a Tuesday deadline. So I don't think you're going to get any chance of starting lineups, etc.
Yeah, and you can't even extrapolate from the first choice sort of team.
From the round 4 game also, you can't really extrapolate this guy played, he started because again, they had the long break prior.
Yeah.
I mean, where I am with... Sorry, go on.
Go on.
No, I was saying basically where I am with Foden is if there's no Bowen positive update, then I think I personally will go there because of the issues with everyone, right? There's no midfielder that is there that you can get and say, okay, this guy has no issues whatsoever. Odegaard has issues. Richarlison we talked about. Jota we talked about. So, Eze we will talk about. So there is no perfect pick. And so I think going Foden this week basically allows you to jump into a little bit of a upside with the next 3 games. Newcastle could be an upside, even though I'm not convinced away to Newcastle is still an easy game. I know people will say their defense is weakened. It has, but at home, after a rest, I don't see that as a big...
But they'll come to play, right, Pras? Because you remember how they played at the Etihad, they firmly parked double-decker buses. And you go back to even last year, I think it was 3-3, this fixture, and Haaland scored 1 goal. So they will come to play at St. James Park. That's a positive.
They will, but they press like monsters at St. James's Park. That's at least my perception of Newcastle, and I've maintained that all season. I do see a dip, so I do think City will win, but I don't think it's 3 goals. I think it's 2 goals, 2-0, 2-1 kind of game. But I think there's upside with Foden, and I think what I like about Foden pick is also it leaves you optionality. You can get Foden and then keep your options open leading to game week 22, whether you want to free hit in game week 25, depending on where things land or not, because then you already have a Foden, you will get Haaland. So you're reasonably okay placed for game week 25 as well.
Is he the best among the worst, Pras, as my grandfather calls me?
It is.
That's what he's looking like.
So I'm less excited about him is basically what I wanted to put across. That he's a great pick. He's been great for people. Adam's in the chat here. He's held him since game week 11. He's done really well with him. But this is, when you think about a stock. Yes, exactly.
You had to mention that.
It's like buying a stock when it's already close to its peak. So you will get some upside, but don't expect too much more upside.
We have a super chat from K. We'll answer that right at the end. It's a team specific question.
All right, just wanted to actually add a little bit on De Bruyne. Whatever permutation combinations you're working out for, just think of a potential plan for him if you need him at 25. I just want to add that in your planning structure because there could be a world where he's fit by the time 23, 24 comes and you want him in 25. So just
impossible without a free hit.
Exactly. Or you have to go without Salah. If they don't have a double, you could say that City have the double. I'll go without Salah, etc.
The opportunity right now is in terms of you're not needing money in defense, Pras. That's the opportunity that's emerged with the Trent
Yeah.
the Trent injury.
Yeah,
That's
I
all.
agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Could
That's
do,
all.
could do. If there's no
Yeah.
Trent in the picture, then you
Yeah.
could think of Salah, KDB, Haaland, cheap defenders. Maybe doable, yeah.
Outside question. Zoph, your thoughts on his haircut?
Who's? Hairstyle.
Kev's.
Kev's? Oh, so envious, man.
Brilliant hair.
I love it. It took me a while because it was like a little
I mean,
bit of
in
a culture
Hindi,
shock.
in Hindi, there's I quote this phrase: "Registan se पूछो बारिश की value." So
क्या मतलब है?
translated means ask a desert the value of rain. So yeah.
Yeah. And just like the 20 minutes of the cameo that he showed, there were a little bit of chat about it because he might not have the legs coming back from a big injury, that he might play deeper. He's more mature now, 32, 33, plays a deeper. Pep threw him right as an advanced state in that game also. Obviously, it's Huddersfield and they've won the game already, but his positioning, etc., that he took up was quite encouraging.
Move on from City.
Yeah.
Let's talk Bowen. Such a good pick. Somebody I really wanted to get, and again features very well on these charts in terms of the big chances he is getting. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong one over here. Yeah, this one. A very good number of big chances, and also I think the highest XG per chance of most players who aren't Haaland, something like 0.2 XG per shot. But now we've heard today that Benrahma is possibly leaving. We don't know what's happening with Paqueta. And with Bowen, the problem with them not playing in the first game week is now these guys are probably off for a short break, etc. We might not get any concrete injury update. For those who hold, I guess it's already have him. It's an easy hold because you obviously won't want to get rid of him. But very difficult to buy now, right?
I mean, it's a two-order problem, right? You want him to get fit and you want Paqueta to get fit, because ultimately maybe it's narrative, but Paqueta helps him. He was the one who assisted him
It's
against
not
Bristol
narrative
as well.
Paqueta would make any team better. He's a quality player.
Fair enough. And especially when you're losing other players as well, Kudus and all. So yeah, I think he would suffer if Paqueta was out, or he himself would be out. But he's a good pick, man. I mean, he's got good fixtures, good pick, scoring goals, good data. People who own him, and if he's fit, and I think he'll be fit. It was a impact injury, not a muscular thing, at least what it looked like. So he should be okay. But you can't go there as buyers now, which may be a good thing for people who went early on him.
But if we get, let's say, some news from the ITK and the lot of West Ham that he's absolutely fine, do you see yourself going there on Friday even if he is flagged?
I would ideally pick him over Foden for all the things I said about Foden earlier.
What about you, LR?
No, don't see myself going there. Like it's a team
Talking
that's
about
right
West
now
Ham,
sitting.
yeah, I wanted you to understand, like, how do you think West Ham will be now?
West Ham, when they had Paqueta and Kudus and Bowen sitting in the bottom 5 XG amongst all teams in the league in the last 6 matches. And now you have their most important creator, as well as one of their important talisman on the right hand side injured. And Antonio is not fit as well. So I'm like, what am I going on? What do I see there? All things said, West Ham don't really need to create that much XG because most of it, albeit without Kudus, all of it is now going to fall to Bowen. He is the chance magnet. Whenever you're watching West Ham play, he's just got the smell of the goal. So invariably, the ball falls to his feet or his head, however short he's getting on the end of headers as well. I just don't know. Like, for me to consider Bowen, I need to have news that Paqueta is fit. Because I don't know what the situation is and what West Ham are going to look without him. And it's just too much of a long shot, especially with two of the fixtures reading United and Arsenal at the moment. Which aren't. You think Moyes is going to do well in those fixtures because Bowen is going to get to counter, and that's how West Ham like to play anyway. But I feel like there are better chances to take and better dices to roll at the moment.
Yeah, the Arsenal away game is a good example because I don't think Bowen would have gotten any service whatsoever without Kudus that game.
Yeah. Even when we're looking at like underlying numbers, right? It's not been great for Bowen the last 6. He's sitting outside the top 10 for XGI amongst all outfielders in the last 6 at the moment. So he's not really like he's standing out at the moment. The reason why we are considering him or thinking about him is because before the last 2 games, in which he got 0 shots, by the way, he was getting the goals. He was converting that 1 or 2 chances that he came. Before that, there were 3 games where he got a ton of chances as well. So that's the thing. At the moment, without these creators, I don't know how West Ham are going to.
That's the thing. I have the numbers up now again from FPL Under the Radar. These are the talismans for various teams. You see Bowen, after your Salah, Haaland and Solanke, the largest chunk of the XG, there's Watkins as well. It's all going to Bowen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is where I don't necessarily agree with the team. I mean, we have to ignore the
Yeah.
team, right?
I
I mean,
agree with you, Pras.
bigger share of a smaller pie. That's okay. He's
Yeah.
ahead of. I mean, his XG is closer to Watkins, closer to higher than Pedro, more than Son. So it's not bad at all, and it's fine. If it's not a great watch because you watch them get 2-3 chances, and he's at the end of them. And in some games, it can be disappointing. But I think he's still a solid pick. I think.
He's always going to be a solid pick. I can't deny that.
We have to keep our eyes peeled for news. Hopefully we do get something. As of now, we have nothing. I checked a lot of sites before coming on. They said they're assessing him as of now.
Yeah.
If we get no news, none of you are going there, right? I mean, LR is not going there regardless, but use of.
If I get news at Paqueta and Bowen off it, I might go there. But I would probably go there over Richarlison, I think. I'd still get Foden in.
Plus, even if I get that news, I might consider him. Paqueta needs to be fit.
Right. Fair enough. And I don't think we'll get that.
Yeah.
Anything else on West Ham? Move on to, I think, who else do we have? I think Arsenal. Let's touch about Arsenal in general as a club. Now, again, I think the above average guys make a good point that usually only double up on an attack when they're posting 2+ XG consistently. Arsenal are just not doing that this year. We know what certain members on this pod already think of Saka. Now, LR, what do you think of Odegaard? Adding on,
I want to revisit Saka though. He might give us the perception that he's not doing too well, etc. right now. But in the last 2 games, he's gotten 4 big chances. That's as much as he got in the 12 games before that. And in the last 6 games, he's top amongst all midfielders for shots. So I am seeing that sort of bell curve change where Saka's getting a little more and more involved. His team isn't as fluid, but Saka isn't hogging the touchline as much as he used to. He's getting a little more involved as things stand. So just wanted to touch that where Saka isn't as bad. His underlying numbers are actually improving now.
He's second for NPXGI over the last 6 matches.
Yeah.
That's very good.
And Odegaard also, right? Like this. Do you think Arsenal are going to continue to struggle? Like that's the question.
I see. The thing is, we always talk about how Jesus makes him better. We don't know how long he is out for. Havertz a centre forward. I don't know. I don't think that's his best position. And Nketiah, as we've spoken before, is good for Nketiah. Not necessarily good for the players around him. Odegaard has been looking better. I don't mind going in for one Arsenal attacker, but I just don't feel comfortable going for the double right now.
Until they find their fluidity, right?
Correct. And that could be, give it a couple of weeks, or it could just flick a switch. They turn back on. Yeah. And something I really liked on the last Monday Night Football, they did a whole section on Arsenal attackers where they featured the low conversion percentages. I can just imagine Arteta just sticking that up on the wall for the last 2 weeks, that these are what everyone is saying, work on this and let's finish our chances going forward.
Yeah. In the first 45, 55, 60 minutes against Liverpool, Arsenal had a fair share of chances also, right? They were not really good against Fulham, but in the first 50, 60 minutes against Poole, they were pretty good.
Definitely. We scored a couple, then again, our narrative would have completely changed what we're discussing right now.
Yeah. Pras, where are you on Arsenal?
Look, I mean, I think there is a observable change in their attack, and we need to go by what we've seen. 20 weeks is enough data to say that there is a little bit of a downward trend, but it only basically stops me from doubling up. So for me, Odegaard is a good pick, but he's no better pick in my eyes just because he plays for Arsenal than a Bowen or a Foden or a Jota. So that's where I am, and I would actually say that he's worse in a way. You could obviously be different. But in terms of Arsenal in general, during this 20 to 30 period, you need some bread and butter teams, right? So not your bread and butter picks, but your teams. And Arsenal is that. You keep your players, you leave them, they will not double, they will not blank. They could blank in 29, but they have decent fixtures, they're a good team. They could surprise you by doing better, or they could do worse. So at the moment, no issues. Arsenal players are all fine, nothing to do. And I would also actually say that Saka is better than all the other guys we've talked about. Odegaard is not, but with penalties, none of the guys we're discussing have penalties. Saka has the set pieces that Saka has. And frankly, for me, he's slightly the best captain this week, for me personally. And possibly, let's say there's a world in which, this guy, Haaland, is not fit next week. You're again looking for a captain next week. Saka needs to be in your team. So if you don't have Saka, he could be the guy you go for instead of the others that we're talking about.
You should mention Palmer as well. If you don't own him, I think I would go for him straight away, more so than Saka this week.
Yeah, he's got everything.
LR, what do you have to say about Palmer?
It's incredibly well taken goals. He's got everything that you want in an FPL midfielder. Like, he's getting the big chances in a team. He's taking all the set pieces on the team. He's taking the penalties, and he's the creative hub of the team as well. You know what else is there? And he's costing only 5.6 million. So need to get him this week, and I will.
Yeah, the creativity numbers are there, and he's taking a lot of set pieces now as well. And we will talk about him in the captaincy, but let's just cover these replacements. There are some more.
I just wanted to ask you guys though, like, let's say, you know, I'm somebody who owns a Darwin. Actually, Trent is somebody you might not need to own, and getting I have got an extra City or a Liverpool player in the bank. Do you think there is a play to committing further to Liverpool and City this week, and maybe swerving Palmer because he's planking in 26 and 29 anyway, and commit to the chip strategy? Like, what are your general thoughts on that? Because a lot of people in my position might be thinking about that anyway, right? What are your thoughts there?
I think the points for Palmer, irrespective of the blanks, etc. Top pick, just get him in place, glue guy.
And then figure out the moving parts with the rest.
Absolutely, because the ceiling is very, very high for Palmer, as we saw last week. I know we recommended a lot of people to bench him, but that was the coin tosses that happened. So and so. Yeah. But again, Chelsea are unpredictable, but I do feel we are getting a bit better. And at home, we usually still put up decent numbers. So the Fulham game is a great entry point. You buy Palmer.
Yeah. Pras?
I still think he's a sell after 25. And
exactly.
Because you will wildcard people back in, and things change, obviously.
I like how optimistic you guys are about us beating Bodo. I am not.
I mean, let's see tonight.
Yeah.
But and we are fully supporting Carrick, obviously. But aside from that, I mean, he also plays Man City and Newcastle. And again, you can argue how difficult Newcastle will be in due course, but we're talking 10 weeks from now, right? Newcastle, I think, will improve. So if you're saying Man City blank, Man City blank, Brentford, Newcastle blank, then I'm open to losing him. But to answer LR's question, Fulham at home, Wolves at home, Crystal Palace away in 3 of the next 4, there's a double digit there for him. He just gets it. So
and he's a captaincy option this week. So it's just that, do I want to commit now? Because I was thinking about it. After this, I have 4 transfers to target the Liverpool City players that I want to. And I already own 2 Liverpool players anyway, right? Whichever way, whether I sell Salah or Trent this week, I'm going to hold Darwin for the potential double in 25. And I already own 2 Liverpool players. So I have 4 transfers to build towards that as and when I want to. So I can just get Palmer in place because he's the cheap value asset to keep while you're moving the more expensive assets around. Like, I'd much rather sell Saka before 26 to fund other players that I want to, before 25 to fund other players that I want to get in play potentially then.
I'm expecting well over 100 EO also for Palmer this weekend. Yeah. I think the fact that it's not the first game of the game week has changed a lot of people's perceptions.
Yeah. Indeed. Can I quickly talk about United? I do want to mention that. Because like one thing's actually happened in the last 2 or 3 weeks is I think the left wing, right wing composition that we found now is far better than anything else that we found anywhere at any point during the season. Like the difference that you saw between the Villa performance and the Wigan performance versus the Forest performance is because somebody who doesn't think like Anthony was starting. Rashford is actually finding his groove for people who fancy a punt there. And we have known for years that he's as streaky and as much of a confident player as they get. He's gotten 2 or 3 returns in his last 2 or 3 goals. I think our first choice front 4 is going to be Rash, Højlund, Garnacho on the right wing, and then Bruno Fernandes as the 10. Because Casemiro is going to come in, and hopefully Ten Hag doesn't do the stupid thing and replaces McTominay with Casemiro. You're going to have a front 6 of Casemiro, Menu, Bruno, Rashford, Højlund, and Garnacho. And I think our capacity to create is going to change as a result of that. I think we're going to be a fairly good attacking unit. We had an XG of 4 versus Wigan. Really good. We look really good in attack, and we were very good against Villa in attack as well. So if somebody fancies a punt now
on who?
For United, on a Rashford or a Garnacho at this point, or a Bruno Fernandes at this point, I just feel like Rashford's at the onset of that streaky streak that he goes on every season. And we've got good fixtures. Spurs, I think, is a really good fixture for attackers, and I think it's going to suit us. Then you've got Wolves, West Ham, Villa, Luton, Fulham. All the way until game week 26, the fixtures for United attackers are good. I just wanted to mention that.
I've missed this late riser.
I genuinely think it's an onset because it works much more than anything. Listen, if Ten Hag somehow shoehorns McTominay and Anthony into the team again, then it's a problem. But if things go this way, I see us improving in attack.
Your thoughts, Pras? Similar or a bit more muted?
No, I think, look, there is more upside given players are coming back. I mean, even Martinez is coming back in defense. So I think the whole team should do better during this period. But can you plump 8 million of your budget into a Bruno or a Rashford? I'm still, maybe it's PTSD from early season, the Rashford and Bruno thing. Maybe we should not.
Somebody like a Bruno still gives you an insurance of penalties, right? So you still have that. Yeah.
I would pick Bruno over Rashford just because of that. He's cheaper also. Same price as Bowen now, man. It's ridiculous. Who would have thought? So he's there as an option. If people can put aside biases, I was down, man. Man United was doing badly. My team FPL team was doing badly. I just don't want to put myself through that. But Garnacho is an option, but just to warn people who are looking at him, his goal threat reduces when he plays on the right because he can't cut in and shoot. So you have to just remember that he's more nailed, but less lethal.
Still took a great shot from his left foot. Did you see that hit the bar? I was surprised he's got that in his locker. He's some player. The way he's progressing is pretty good. So I just wanted to mention.
Stick to this Garnacho right, Rashford left for the foreseeable.
It's better than any wing combination we've had all season. Literally all season. In fact, I feel like Garnacho's a little better on the right because he's not just looking to beat his player and shoot. He's thinking about how he wants to play, etc. as well. So, yeah.
Fair play. Let's talk about some other unfashionable picks. Right over here is your
number 3.
Before we
do that, Zoph,
go ahead.
A like plug. We have 744 people watching. You've had the helicopter view. You've had LR's Man United rant, or actually in this case, a positive one. We've discussed all the dilemmas that we have as of now. So it would be really appreciated if you can like. And we didn't hit our target, man. We didn't hit our 30,000 target. So we're really sad. But if you are listening and you're not subscribed, that also doesn't cost you anything. So we'd really appreciate it.
Cheers, Pras.
I mean, the only thing that's been making Pras happy is he's been sitting with Wood all December.
All of it. And I was manager of the month. I had a great December. He's good for my team. Even if he's on the bench, it's always good to have Wood.
Yeah. Always. I hear rumors you might be going in with Wood this weekend.
I am. I'm definitely.
Yeah. It's finally coming out.
He's starting.
Yeah.
Right, that's a Wood joke done.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
unfashionable picks.
Pascal Gross. Swan from our Discord actually mentioned he's thinking of captaining him against Wolves.
I'm just not a Gross kind of manager, man. Like I need a Mitoma or an Adingra in there. He's a trickler. Incredible player, does well, but he's a glue guy that sticks in your team, and he's an explosive, top of chances, underlying data. He's got 5 returns in his last 7. I hear all of that. It's just I don't fancy him.
We do expect Brighton to get a bit better now, right? Since they don't have this midweek load. I know they're without Mitoma and Adingra, but from what I've seen, I saw the game against Stoke. They were obviously a bit open defensively, but in attack, they're still functional. It's again a system. I think in general, teams that are more system-based rather than individual-based will profit during this period. I feel West Ham are more individual. They rely on these like great players like your Bowens and Paqueta, but like your Spurs and to an extent even Liverpool, they're more system-driven teams. Liverpool, I think the injuries are too significant. Maybe if they had just Trent 1 or 2 absences. Trent is a like straw that broke the camel's back for me a little bit. But in general, these teams will work more on systems. I don't think 1 or 2 players out accepts the rhythm too much.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to talk about Palace. Do we have any more Olise news now?
I think he's out for a bit. I think at least till February is what we know.
That's a shame.
Because like 21-22.
Yeah, for people that wanted to go Bowen and were looking for a steady Eddie pick, like I thought Eze and Olise were sitting right there because every single time both of them have started together, Palace just sets it up. They look incredibly good. They score goals against literally anybody. They're really elite players. We must not lose sight of them playing for Palace. They're they're 2 of the most coveted youngsters in the entire league. Unfortunately, Olise is injured. Otherwise, any of the two would have been really, really good. I think Olise is sitting at like the highest points per start or something of that.
Yeah. But the problem is when either of them goes teams, it becomes much easier to contain them because you double up, triple up on the guy who's the main fulcrum. I like it when they're both playing.
Exactly. I mean, I'm getting Olise next week. Either as or Gross. So it's not as under, at least that's the plan before the Trent news, because plan was this week to get 8 million mid, so Foden, Bowen or someone. Next week to fund Haaland, I have to downgrade Salah or Son to somebody who's in the 6 million range. And so
but that changes now, like you
Gross
said,
I like a lot.
With the Trent thing.
Correct. I could downgrade Trent instead.
It's a shame because you couldn't have even written better fixtures for them. They're playing all the 3 promoted teams at home before Game Week 38. 2 of the away games that they play are against Brighton and Spurs are traditionally very open teams. I think there were just goals there for them. It's a shame.
But even Brighton, man. Wolves at home, Crystal Palace home, Everton home, Nottingham Forest home are the 4 home games. And the away games are Luton away, Spurs away, Sheffield United away, and Fulham away. It's ridiculous.
That's why Gross. I like Gross as a pick. I can't fault it.
I just think if you have a forward slot open, Pedro is somebody I'd actually touch over somebody like a Gross. So penalty taker.
How is it open?
Is if you own somebody like an Archer and are looking to play the squad game right now, eventually shift to a formation, something of that sort, then because Pedro has got that upside for me, not Gross.
Yeah, but Pras is thinking about Haaland. Pras is thinking that eventually like you'll have to lose Solanke then for Haaland, assuming...
Haaland, Watkins, Solanke. It's hard to lose the 3.
It's just that the formation shift that you make is how I see it. But like if you're talking about picks from Brighton, Pedro is
a better
much
pick.
more convincing.
Yes, he's much more of an LR pick, much higher ceiling.
Yeah. It played really well in the last 3-4 games as well. He's getting in and around a lot of the chances.
Oh yeah, the form is definitely there.
I mean, if Pedro was a midfielder, he would be up there as a recommendation, but he's not. And unfortunately, this is the problem. There's Darwin and Alvarez also in the equation, who you can't sell this week. There's just 5 forwards that are competing, and it's difficult to get to João Pedro.
Yeah. Unfashionable picks. What do you think about the inevitable Ivan Toney brace this week?
Again, I would like to see him get a few minutes, get fitness. Playing on the training ground is different from playing Premier League matches.
Yeah, I know, but like Zoph, you and I are into like personality and you know what kind of a guy Ivan Toney is. He's the kind of guy who he will want to show the finger to everybody out there. He's
come
that
back
guy.
with a bag, like, you know, are you not entertained sort of thing. Like, for sure.
By the way, he plays Wolves first in the FA Cup replay, which I think he's eligible for because it happens after he's back 15th. So he can play Wolves away. So he gets his little run out, gets his minutes, then the brace against Nottingham Forest. It's happening. But we can't get there.
Elanga, I had a look at Elanga earlier. The fixtures are quite dodgy. Probably won't go there. I'm just looking at this list. I think we've covered everybody. Sterling. Douglas Luiz. How do we keep forgetting Douglas Luiz?
I mean, the appeal for them is essentially Game Week 26. They play Nottingham Forest at home. Now, of course, LR will say there's points to take before that. So forget about Game Week 26. And I agree. I don't think the fixtures before that are anything to write home about. Sheffield United away, Fulham away, fine. But you're relying on pens. So you will never know when to start him, when to bench him. Could have been an option, but if Eze is there at similar price, then you go for Eze or a Gross.
Yeah.
Anything else from this guy? Should we talk about captaincy, which I think deserves some time this week?
Apparently, Paqueta is out for 4 weeks. It's just been confirmed. So that kills Bowen. At least, I mean, if you hold him, it's fine. But at least as somebody to buy now.
Yeah, it definitely reduces the bows in his arrow, for sure.
I like that part.
Arrows in his,
Right, let's talk captaincy, boys. It's interesting. This week is quite open. I think probably the most open this season because we don't have any of the heavy hitters available to us. And I think we all will be captaining a player below 10 mil because there simply isn't a player in that price bracket. So I think the names I've seen thrown around are obviously looking at the fixtures. Palmer, Alvarez or Foden. Maybe Watkins. I don't really know. Richarlison. Saka is who I had my bus team on. But again, what I saw that game, I don't really know. The advantage is Palace have a replay. They traveled, I think, to Everton before they play Arsenal. So there might be some fatigue, etc. there. But the game against Arsenal isn't really involved any travel. It's a London game. So they're playing at a different stadium. But I do take that into account as well. If the same thing they had to travel somewhere, it adds a bit more fatigue. So it's not that bad.
But Everton is far, right? So that midweek they have to travel.
The midweek they have to travel, but not another away game, for example, like in that sense. Obviously, Brentford, maybe Tony if you're going very punty, but Liverpool, is there even any option there now? Jota, if you're super adventurous? No?
Yeah, Jota is definitely an option.
Darwin even. What about Darwin?
Yeah. I was on a Liverpool player until I heard the Trent news. So that's sort of
I still don't mind Darwin though. If you have if you really want to go, I think LR 1.0 would have punted on Darwin this week.
My captaincy was on a Liverpool player until I heard the news about Trent, and I'm just going to wait and see how they do without Trent, what Liverpool look like, and then take it from there. But let's talk about Chelsea, Zoph. I actually want to take, because there are two things to discover. Let's just talk matchups, right? I think Fulham are considerably weaker without Bassey and Iwobi. I think they've been two of the most important players in the league. It's just how reliable are Chelsea in attack at the moment? Because even against Luton, right? It was a 1.3, 1.4 XG performance. It wasn't a lot of XG. It required Kabore to late on the platter for Palmer to assist a worldie from Madubuke to get that 18-point haul. What's your read on Chelsea and how they're going to perform in the future?
Again, we will create chances, and accumulating XG hasn't been a problem. It's always been finishing them. Broya, I think in that aspect is a little bit better than Jackson, and I think he's probably going to be starting at centre forward. Poch mentioned we have a lot of players who could play striker. He threw Palmer's name in there, but I think that was just him speaking to the press. Palmer's now been taking a lot more set pieces. He's become a lot more pivotal to the team. It is a local derby as such. It is our main derby, but we really value the Spurs game a bit more. And what I like here is that Fulham are traveling to Anfield on Wednesday, and we play them now on Saturday in the early kickoff. It's a very low recovery time for Fulham, and Fulham will obviously go full strength. The Carabao Cup matters to them. They're very safe in the league. So Anfield is tiring. Against Liverpool, you have to do a lot of running and stuff. So that encourages me a lot more. So I've moved my captain over to Palmer. I think we scored a couple past Fulham. Hope so, at least.
Good shot. I think on paper, he's one of the best captaincy options this week. You can't argue.
Because what do you look for your captaincy, right? You want somebody who takes set pieces. You want somebody who takes penalties. You want somebody who has creativity and goal threat. The price bias is probably the one thing that's playing on my mind. But we have to look at him as an underpriced asset. Now, if he was your 8.5, would you be more comfortable captaining him? I think so.
Yeah. Pras?
I agree with everything Zoph said. I think Palmer is a top 2 captain choice. I am personally still looking at Arsenal more and so looking at Saka more, despite what's happening in terms of the issues that they've had. I just think, look, that's a team which has a nice little break at the moment. So between now and Crystal Palace, but they're on a low. So what is Arteta doing right now? They're basically talking about Crystal Palace. They're looking at Crystal Palace. How can we play against them? They've got 10 days to work on this Crystal Palace game. Fatigue is not an issue. Crystal Palace, as I mentioned, are traveling up to Liverpool playing Everton. So I just think as a matchup, it's a good matchup. A rested Arsenal. Yes, Chelsea play a Fulham team that's playing midweek, but Chelsea is also playing today. So they get one extra day rest.
Chelsea, the advantage is they're playing at home. That's the only thing. Against Bodo, where we'll have most of the ball. But your point is well taken. And this is a fixture that Saka, I think, got a 16 or 18 pointer last year.
Yeah. Palace, who conceded a 2.74 XGC to Chelsea just a couple of weeks ago as well.
So my instinct was Saka immediately when I saw it, and it's very close between Palmer and Saka. I mean, I think it'll go down to the wire. Small things like if there's a red card in the Fulham game and they lose one extra player, then we'll say, okay, now Palmer is better. It's very small margins. I think it's similar, but we should also remember, I think this is also not, sometimes we fixate on captaincy because we're debating between a 15-pointer potentially from Haaland versus Salah. Here we're talking 8 pointers from either of them. My instinct that it's a low stakes decision, so we shouldn't fixate too much. Both are good options.
It could be a big swing still, Pras.
Yeah, you find the ceiling.
Can
right?
obviously be, but expected points wise, both are around 7, 8. So it's it's not huge swings. Hopefully, of course, FPL gods choose differently, so it'll be one of those two.
I just want to mention though that I mentioned at the top of the pod, Saka isn't getting as much noise as he should, but his underlines are trending massively in the right direction. So you should just look at that. I want to throw a name into the. I think Rashford/Bruno are good captaincy options this week. Should you decide to punt there as well? I genuinely think Spurs will always give you chances no matter what. Like Solanke could have had a hat trick against Spurs in that game, and this just feels like a Rashford game to me. I genuinely think we're going to score a couple past them. Good captaincy punt if you fancy it.
Does anybody playing into the first weekend or second weekend affect your decision at all, Pras?
I think on the margin it does. I would have ideally liked to captain somebody playing the first weekend, but both are early kickoffs, right? I mean, in terms of the early kickoff gets its bad name not because it's the first kickoff of the FPL week. It's because it's a Saturday morning kickoff where people have to wake up at 6 o'clock, have their pasta at 7 o'clock, and basically go through the whole routine, which sometimes puts them off keel. Now, Palmer scored what against Luton? This 18-pointer was the early kickoff. So there is no science behind it. I think both are okay. You're basically accounting for a training ground injury or something happening in this week leading up to the second weekend. You just vice captain Palmer if you want.
Yeah.
So that's
I
what
think
I've
that's
done at
something
the
we should
moment.
mention. The vice captaincy should be someone who we have a clear press conference for in the
Yeah.
first weekend.
Good shout.
So I don't think
No
I
one
can really
thinking
say
of-
anything to split the two. I think there are merits in the both of them. But I do
Correct.
think at the EO wise, I think Palmer, I do expect him to be higher purely because of recency bias, what we've seen with Arsenal and Palmer just hauling the weekend before.
And I don't know why in this case, normally I err on the side of caution because maybe I'm driving this narrative that the ceiling is not that high for both of them. But I feel like capping the one who will be lower EO because it's just the same. Like any polls I see on Twitter, people are saying Palmer much higher than Saka because obviously there's this thing of people think Arsenal are getting relegated now. So, that's the opportunity. Like if we can
It
get a
is.
Saka double digit when other people are not captaining him home to Crystal Palace with a 10-day rest, I think it's an opportunity.
But it's objectively also, even though like Saka's numbers are trending positively, right? Like Palmer's a guy who's had 5 shots minimum in 4 out of his last 5 games. Like that's the kind of pick he is now, where he's getting shots and creating chances every game, no matter what. So that's the reason why Palmer's just getting.
One other concern I had, and question to Zoph, there was a game in which Sterling was randomly benched, right?
Mhm.
Now Palmer played weekend. Palmer will play tonight. Let's assume he plays 90 minutes. Is there any minutes risk? Like, can we differentiate that in any scenario in which he plays Madueke and Sterling? I know Palmer is nailed generally, but just for one particular match, even a 20-minute early sub, do you see it or no?
It helps that he's very young, 22, 23 years old, and we play on the Tuesday and Saturday, both being home games. So there's no travel, no fatigue. And there was a 6-day period for Chelsea in December where we saw a lot of rotation. And that's the one that Palmer missed the middle game due to suspension. So we don't have any sample size to extrapolate from that. So it would be pure assumption to that. And I think he's just too important to the team right now. We're just building some sort of momentum. It's a home game that Poch won't mess around.
And if you're thinking about Liverpool assets, watch their performance midweek and then take a call. That's where that. Yeah. I was fancying a Jota punt. I was on Jota pre-Trent injury news. I was like, there's an opportunity for a differential midfield, brace hat-trick potential kind of player. And Jota knows how to finish, right? So that was what I was looking at pre this news. And with taking fully into consideration dodgy expected minutes, it was a roll of the dice I was willing to make. Like because of the reason you mentioned, right, Pras, where you don't really see a ceiling with any of these players. That's why I was willing to roll that dice.
But I see we're talking about Saka, Pras, because once I had the fixtures, I always go back to my bus team. My bus captaincy wasn't on Palmer, it was on Saka. So see the point you're making there about possibly going against. I might do the emotional hedge with as I usually do with Chelsea. Something to think about.
It's not much in it.
I just don't feel confident captaining Chelsea, man. That's how it is. We just don't have any kind of Chelsea can turn up on the day.
Bukayo Saka, 0.94 XGI versus Brighton, 0.12 against Liverpool, 1.15 against West Ham, 1.09 against Fulham.
The numbers are very much there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, how do Palace set up in these big games? And I think they have their first choice back four fit now. I have to check what lineup they played. But I think the midfield is still missing. Your Lerma, Doucouré, etc. still missing. But Hodgson is generally decent in these big away games.
Just very loosely, if I'd be much more confident if Olise was fit. Because he just gives them the license to play a little if he's got both these guys fit. And
Yeah.
I think the
Now he
plan
knows-
changes if one of them.
Now he knows that
Yeah.
I don't have the players to really do that.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's
both are going to
captaincy.
be 2-0s, 2-1s, or 3-1s, and
Game
it'll
state
come
will
down
play a
to-
big part, but if you have a Joao Pedro, I do like the captaincy against Wolves. That's like the outside punt I would go for.
And speaking about bus teams, my bus team captain earliest was Ollie Watkins as well, because Villa are just a very reliable unit in attack, and Ollie Watkins is the only guy who's closest to the likes of Erling Haaland and Mo Salah in terms of consistent numbers through the season, right? So it just felt like a good, safe pick for an Everton that have lost 3 on the trot now. So a team that's trending a little downwards. No, I don't mind that
It's
shot.
just
I think.
Everton away and how Goodison, like, generally they've been strong Everton. Just that matchup doesn't appeal to me as well.
and Villa away also. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not the best. What about Foden or Alvarez?
Alvarez is one that's quite popular. I've seen a lot of bus teams on him. And again, we do expect KDB to play some minutes, but there's no Haaland, so Alvarez minutes aren't under threat. We know now he's on penalties. But again, as we saw the last few weeks, again, we saw that he had that one big chance. But from what I saw that game, I wasn't really afraid as somebody who didn't have Alvarez in their team. LR, talk to me.
Yeah, Foden seems to get the better chances centrally. He's a great team player. It's what Zoph said a couple of weeks ago on the pod. He's more Gabriel Jesus than Kun Aguero.
That's what it does feel like. But again, he is capable of a haul. You're backing solid pedigree over there. It's all about how you weigh up Newcastle. I think they will concede a couple of goals at least still.
Couple is fair, but I'm not captaining away to Newcastle. I mean,
Generally don't
I'm
do
not.
that.
I'm not there yet.
I'd agree with that. He'd probably be third in my pecking order. I would say Palmer, Saka, and then maybe a Liverpool player even over City.
Yeah.
But
I haven't ruled out a Liverpool player based on their performance. It feels like a very Liverpool game,
It does.
Like in terms of them pressing, being slightly open chances in the game.
But
just
Bournemouth
again,
a good team, man. They're firmly
good.
mid-table now.
No, and if you look at the numbers are outstanding. I'll just show you some defensive numbers over here. They've only conceded 7 big chances. I think in the last few games, I need to go to XG conceded non-penalty. They're just behind City. 6.46.
They're also somebody that come out to play Pras, They won't park.
Yeah,
Like
that's
if
the
you saw the
difference.
Spurs game also, Spurs got their chances, despite there being a part of the play where Podmore did with the attack. But you get your chances, and Liverpool are the kind of team that are capable of taking advantage of such and such.
Let's do our bus
Right,
teams before, or actually, we have some questions. I want to address some super chats before the couple actually from K. Both.
Yeah, sure.
Let's just hit those first. I'll just read out the scroll up for the first one. Have Saka, Palmer, Bowen, Richarlison, Son, Alvarez, Watkins, Solanke. So midfield is your Saka, Palmer, Bowen, Richarlison, Son. Forwards,
No,
Alvarez, Watkins. Go ahead.
he's read out his team as the start and the bench in the next one, where he said Areola, Shah, Gabriel, Poro, Saka, Palmer, Richarlison, Bowen, Solanke, Watkins, Alvarez. He's got Trent, Taylor, and Son on his bench. He's thinking of a -8 to bring both Foden and Estupinan and bench Shah, Bowen, and Ta. Is it worth it?
Why would you bench
No need.
Bowen though?
Yeah, play Bowen.
And even share at home. You don't necessarily need to
And-
bench him. It's a playable fixture. I know City, but again, you could dong a goal. Share at
I think
home.
-4 is okay. -8 is
Yeah.
too much. So
Yeah.
avoid basically the second hit and play Bowen instead. That would be
Correct. But I like the idea of bringing Foden and Stupinan.
Yeah.
They're both
it's going to
top
be
picks.
popular.
That's probably
I
the
just-
two transfers right now as we stand. I'm likely doing.
Yeah, I just wouldn't sell Bowen for a hit. But take a hit to bench Bowen. So -4, like Pras said, is fine, but don't take a hit to bench Bowen. Bowen's a good player, irrespective of opposition any week.
Okay. By the way, I was wrong about Chelsea. We are playing away today, so there is a bit of travel, etc., involved in all that stuff. I thought our first leg was at home. Just to chat for
Right.
correcting me there.
Cheers. Bus teams.
Bus teams. This is, I think, mine. Yeah, with Matty Cash has to be my team. Areola in goal. Poro, Trent, who's now injured. Gabriel. So I would probably have Cash subbing, who's now hopefully back in the good books after his goal in the FA Cup. Salah, Saka, Palmer, bus captain. Gordon, Son, Watkins, and Solanke with Archer and Cash as my subs again. I don't mind having I could possibly, like, let's say, do 2 transfers. I have 2 free transfers, so I could possibly let Archer sub in for one of these positions or Cash sub in, but I want to have at least one playing sub in each position. That's my general outlook when the game week is so extended. So I'll probably be making 3 moves. Foden and Estupinan I'm pretty set on. The third midfielders, I'm going to wait for some news. Probably Richarlison is who I'm going for, I think, as of now.
Cool.
So, but the third defender, who will you sell as your defender? You're not selling Trent, right?
Are we selling Trent for Estupinan?
But what if he's back next week? I mean, don't you want to sell Cash instead? Because money is not an issue, right? Why not deal with the problem? Because look, I mean, Cash, I think this...
I get that, but then again, I'll have no defensive sub. Because I have Kabore stinking up the place also here, right? And I don't even know if Cash will play. I don't even know Cash will play because it's a tough game. Maybe it was a home game at Everton. Again, he might go with the Konsa thing.
Yeah. I just wouldn't want to be in a hurry like Pras to sell Trent. Because it's potentially a transfer back in 2 weeks. So just like think we'll have more news by Friday irrespective.
I just like Estupinan, man. Estupinan feels somebody who has a ceiling.
But get him for Kabore or get him for Cash is what I mean.
I got your point. Get that. Okay, getting for Kabore in fact makes an option because then you can use Cash still as a sub. That makes sense. Yeah. I didn't think of that. That's a good shot.
I mean, you're not doing it, but just as a general strategy for those that want to, let's say, hold on to ones of Son and have a cheap midfielder to upgrade, I was just going to suggest Garnacho as a placeholder, somebody that you can sort of hide as a fifth midfielder also. Him and Richarlison are actually top 2 for XG last 6 amongst all the midfielders available as of now as well. So his numbers are good. But Pras mentioned his output might go, but I think he's first choice now, Pras. No worry about that.
He is. Minutes
at that
up.
price, just
Another thing I have to look at is if I sell Son and Trent, could I potentially hold Salah for one more week of information? See how Egypt fared in the AFCON. I think I can still do Archer to Haaland if I sell both Trent and Son this week. That way, maybe I can wait till game week 22, see something from City and get the City option that week. Get somebody like Richarlison in this week, Keep that option a little bit open because information, I think, will be useful. What we get on 21. That's where I am. I'll just roll up the next one of it.
Tricky week, man. Who to sell is equally important to who to buy.
Yep. For some reason, your bus team isn't loaded up here. Could you guys put it up from one of your images? I'll just add it over here.
Yeah, I can talk through mine. I'm starting Areola like you. I've got Porro, Gabriel, Saliba. So rocking up double Arsenal defense again. And Trent at the moment. I've got Palmer, Saka captain, bus captain, Richarlison. And then up front, I've got Chris Wood. I've got Solanke and I've got Watkins. So look, I think my initial instinct was anyway that I'll start Wood over Porro. So it's not like I'm hesitant to start him. I think Forest are good away. Brentford are weaker defensively. So I'll be starting Porro basically if I do my moves. And at the moment, my move is just to do Son to Foden. And in that setup, basically now I'll bench Trent. So my defense will be Gabriel, Saliba, and Porro. My midfield will be Palmer, Saka, Foden, and Richarlison, Wood, Solanke, and Watkins. So I'm okay with that. Konsa as a first sub is okay as a backup. Basically, what I'm doing is holding both Son and Trent, both Salah and Trent. And over the next 2 weeks, I will then wait and 2 free transfers and wait to see if Egypt is doing worse than expected in AFCON, if Trent's injury is better than expected or better than what we think by game week 22, because that is 2 weeks away. So that's the plan.
Decent. But don't you think there are games to attack over here? What's your thoughts there?
No, I think it's fine. I think it's okay if you're committing next week with the full picture in mind. Like, because you're going to have a much clearer picture, right? So I am okay with the idea of holding for just this week and taking decisions next week.
Correct.
I'm liking that idea as well. I'm going to see if I can potentially hold Salah for one more. Because again, we know that we might want Salah back, more open to selling Son. Something to look at. LR, your team?
Yeah, that's my team. I've got Dubravka in goal, Porro, Gabriel, Trent, who was actually my bus captain, as you can see here, and Gusto. In midfield, Salah, Son, and Richarlison. Up front, I've got Darwin, Watkins, and Solanke. Moves as things stand before the pod were Son and Salah to Jota, who was going to cap, and Cole Palmer. as things stand, moves remain the same. I just got a very strong Jota feeling, so I want to see how he looks tomorrow. We'll be watching the game closely. Uh, 2 or 3 names that hovering around: Phil Foden, and the United boys are somebody I'm thinking about.
Is
Fair
Charlie
shout.
Taylor getting a run out?
No, now I had to actually bench one of Gusto Poro, so it's not much of a problem now. I'll just happily bench Trent and play both Gusto and Poro.
Got it.
That defensive
That-
transfer is working out well last week.
Working
Fixing
out
the
very well.
bench is never a
Yeah.
bad thing.
Yeah, never a bad thing. I was telling Zoph just before you came on that transfer sort of helped me. Yeah, because it was a
whoever
defensive transfer.
recommended that
Yeah.
was very wise and very good looking, Ella.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It was a decision, and it actually enables me not to worry thinking about selling Trent this week because Gusto covers a lot of the defensive headway for me at the moment. So I don't need to worry too much about defensive
And he played
transfers.
very well. He's definitely
Yeah.
one of our form players now. I think his stats are looking far
Yeah.
more assured than they did a few weeks ago.
Very honestly, I was looking at benching one of Gabriel Poro. I was like, I don't want to bench Gusto because he's been so attacking.
In which
Yeah.
case, you'd probably bench Porto.
Yeah, it was one of the two.
But again, what a goal, man. I want to mention that goal. So many players who are on our teams had such good FA Cup weekends.
Yeah.
All defenders.
Almost all of our defenders. Right.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up, boys. We've gone for almost an hour 40. It's been a long one today.
Yeah, it's been great, man. Just so nice to talk FPL with both of y'all. Zoph, I'm hoping to see you in the top 10K in the next 2 weeks, and Pras too in the top 50K in the
2
next
weeks
2
is a
weeks.
bit much. It's only one game week. Do it.
In the next 2 game weeks, it'll
Okay.
happen, man. Why not? Why not?
Zoph and I are what we call grafters. We'll slowly come, and then basically by game week 37, when we play our bench boost, is the first time we appear in top 10K, and then we stay there for game week 38. Hopefully.
No, man, this is your season, boys. You got this.
No,
Not
we
much
ca-
separate.
no,
The
thank you.
ranks are tight. Like at the great and the good, I think I'm on tied on top with Mark, but there's literally 6 points between first and eighth. So ranks are still quite condensed.
Just to state how tight they was, the Liverpool Newcastle game was right after the Sangeet for my brother. Congratulations to him, by the way. Just wanted to give him a shout out to him and Karishma both. I woke up to a Salah -1 at halftime, and then I checked the match for 10 minutes on my phone, which I should never do because it's terrible luck. So at that point, I was sitting at 150K, and as you had it, I ended the game week on 330K. So it can change in the matter of like 45 minutes also. So yeah.
It's going to be hard to find a game that tops that from an FPL perspective, the whole Dubravka thing and the whole roller coaster.
Honestly, I don't let FPL affect my mood as much anymore. I mean, early days it used to, but obviously I'm the other perspective where I was captain Salah and I had benched Dubravka, and as of you were the same. When that penalty was missed, I was just like thinking it's just like the worst outcome when your captain misses a penalty and the guy who you have benched that other people own has saved it. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, the swings were incredible.
I made the mistake, I think, like when I was just getting back into the swing of things like a few days ago. I was catching up with match of the day, catching up, etc. And just before sleeping, I saw the extended highlights for Liverpool Newcastle again. And I slept with those images of those Darwin misses. Literally for 30-45 minutes straight, while trying to sleep, those misses were just like ringing in my head. And as an FPL match, you're always going to ask, what if? Damn, I was so close, so close. Yeah, here's me. Who knows? Maybe I'll give him the armband after all this week. So
I can see a Darwin captain coming. After this chat, I think my summary is that Darwin captain is closer than you let on.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
Right. Fantastic catching up with you boys again. It felt like it was too long. Again, I think we'll be planning something in the midweek. Let's see this whole limbo which we have. Maybe we'll do a takeaways from the weekend. Something next week.
And just as a request for the new year, it'd be great if you could share a podcast on your socials, whether that's on Twitter or Instagram. We'd appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again soon.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.